Before a lot of you were born, I worked at summer camp down at Nameless Valley. And there happened to be this young lady that I really wanted to impress. You know how it is when you're a teenager, you just fall in love with a heartbeat for the most part. But in any case, I'd fallen in love with this young lady, and I wanted to impress her. And the only way I could think to impress her was, well, it's summer camp, so you're kind of pretty restricted, and you have very little time together and everything like that. She liked to run. In fact, she was a cross-country runner at her high school. And so, out of the blue, I just decided I'm going to run with her. I'm just going to get out there and run. Now, of course, you have to get out there ridiculously early in the morning when you're at summer camp to do anything. So we get out there, and Nameless Valley Ranch, if you're familiar with it, it's like 1.5 miles from the main camp area out to the front gate and everything like that. 1.5 miles, I can do that, no problem. Not thinking about it's 1.5 miles there, and it's 1.5 miles back. And also, further, not considering that I had not run in some while, since like 8th grade or something like that, other than just playing sports. And that wasn't organized, and it wasn't like disciplined, like regular running and everything like that. And so I remember running out there with this young lady and running to the front gate and back and thinking the whole way back, I'm going to die. I'm just going to die. And it was kind of like, hey, gotta go at the end there, no kind of goodbyes. I needed to go some places I felt like I needed to throw up. That's how I was feeling to run. And I remember, this is too hard. But I was so in love. I was stupid. So I did it again. And not only had she run track in high school, but she was really fast. And if you're a guy and you're trying to impress a girl, you can't be slower than her. It just doesn't work that way. I know that's sexist and dinosaur-like and everything like that. So I'm like, I cannot do this every day. She's going to see me for the flaw that I am. So what did I decide to do? I decided to run on my own at other times so I could get faster. Now, the only crazy part about this was that my only other free time during the day in Austin, or just north of Austin, was around noon. Now, think about this. Summer camp means what? Summer. Texas, summer means what?
Heat.
It's ridiculously hot. It's crazy hot. They're like the clouds don't even bother to come over Texas in the summer most of the time because they don't want the heat. And so there I am out running at noon every day. Running these back trails and everything like that, just trying to get faster, just so I could impress this girl. I mean, I would run sometimes so much that I would get blisters on my feet. And I would just run through those blisters because, why? I was in love. And love hurts, you know that. No, it shouldn't. Remember that. But that's how I was. But as I thought about that, I realized that sometimes we're the same way with God. I mean, we feel like we just gotta always do our absolute level best. Because if we don't run hard enough, if we don't run fast enough, maybe, just maybe, God won't be in love with us. If we don't give our level best at all times, and if we don't succeed at everything that we do, maybe, just maybe, God will look at us and go, loser. You know what that is? It's a loser in 3 dimensions. And that's how we feel about God sometimes. That's what we think God thinks about us. But there's an interesting story that's told in the Scriptures. In fact, it's the very first story of Scriptures. It's a story about God creating. God creating everything that there was in the universe. And we pick up this story in Genesis chapter 2. In Genesis chapter 2, beginning in the first verse, it says this: "Thus the heavens and the earth and all the host of them were finished. And on the seventh day God ended his work which he had done. And he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had done. And then God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because in it he rested from all his work which God had created and made." We're Seventh-day Adventists. We get that seventh-day part from that commandment from God. But it's kind of like, a lot of times we don't really think about the Sabbath and what it means and what it's all about. We think about it as a list of do this, don't do that. We think about it as, well, in some cases, a great burden. But that was never God's plan. You see, at creation, God gave man three things. The first thing he gave man was, well, procreative activity. He said, go, be fruitful, multiply. That doesn't mean 1 times 2, 3 times 4. That means, So he created us for relational intimacy. But then God also said, go and subdue the earth. It means be creative. Do something with this place. And then after that, he gave us rest. Rest before we ever did a thing. God says to Adam and Eve, you are to rest. But too often we miss that. Too often we just kind of dance around it. We walk around the Sabbath and we just kind of think, I can't wait for this thing to be over. Not realizing that we were meant to, oh, hey, this is nice. This is comfortable. Hey, come to the business session tonight. Let's vote these for everybody. What do you think? Oh, look at that. Oh, that's comfortable. I did this first service. This was the YG setting. Get it? Lay back. In any case. It's very comfortable. You see, the Sabbath was this idea of God's before sin ever entered this world. Before man ever sweat his brow and did anything, God says, rest. Rest. You see, this is very instructive for a couple of reasons. One, by the first thing God giving to mankind was the commandment to rest. He's telling us, look, don't make a God out of these things that I've given you as blessings. I've given you intimacy, which we understand is sex. And I've also given you work. But don't make those things God. I want you to know that your value to me is not based on your prowess, intimacy. It's not based on your effectiveness at work. Your value to me is intrinsic, and nothing can ever change that. You're valuable to me just the way you are. You see, but yet we think that he means something else, don't we? You see, that was the challenge, is that with Adam and Eve, when they ate the fruit, really what they were saying to God is that you're a liar. You're a liar is what they were saying to him. We look at it and we may think, that's really ridiculous that he would do this over a piece of fruit. But you have to understand what they were actually saying by taking the fruit. You're a liar. And so consequently, we are all oftentimes tempted to think God is lying when he says what he says. And when he says, I love you so much that I would send my only son to die for you, we think he's lying. And so we think we've got to keep working. And we fail to remember the very first thing that God gave to man was this: a lazy boy. He says, Adam and Eve, kick back, relax, rest. Why should they be resting? They haven't done anything. God's the one that's been doing all the work for the last 6 days, but that's a demonstration of God. You see, God is always calling us deeper into intimacy with him. He's saying, come and enjoy what I have done for you. Enjoy what I want to give you. And yet we dance around it all along, thinking, no, that can't be me. I got to get out there. I got to run harder. I got to sweat more if I'm going to get him to love me. That's what we do. And so God, knowing how thick-headed we can be, he gave us the Sabbath. He gave us the Sabbath to remind us every 6 days. He says, look, tap the brakes. It's time to slow down. It's time to remember that I love you. I love you. I love you. And I want you to have my rest. We're crazy people, particularly here in America. You ever go up to somebody and say, hey, how you doing? Busy? Anybody ever say, no, just chilling. Got nothing else to do. No, we pride ourselves in our busyness. We pride ourselves that we're always going and going faster and longer and stronger and higher and taller and wider and all those other things. We turn competition into everything. Recently I read there was a man who completed an unofficial race across America, starting in Manhattan, in New York City, and racing all the way to Redondo Beach, California. He completed it along with a co-driver as well as an electronics guy who sat in the back of his tricked out Mercedes with an electronics suite, complete with multiple radar jammers and scanners and GPS. He installed two 22-gallon fuel cells in his trunk so he could minimize the stopping time. Made it from New York to California, 28 hours, 50 minutes. They registered on the GPS tracking service. They were only stopped for 46 minutes that entire drive. They averaged 98 miles an hour from coast to coast. A couple of places out west, 156 on the top speed. Why do you do this? You see, you think that's fast, but I ask you, how was your last week? How quickly things went by because you were churning and burning so far, so fast, you couldn't even see the days go by. You know, you're running from class to jobs, to work, and back and forth again, to this social activity, that social activity. You're churning and burning. You're always going. It's just like you and that Mercedes going across the country. You got your pedal to the metal, and you are not letting up. And then the Sabbath comes, and how does it slow down all of a sudden? How do you throw that gear? Well, I would say most of you probably know. You see, because we get in the habit of always going, and then we start thinking that God looks at us the same way. That God perhaps is trying to figure out, well, how quickly can they jump through this hoop that I've got for them? And all along, from the very beginning, God is saying, I want you to rest. I want you to rest. In fact, in the book of Hebrews, in chapter 4, this is such an important concept that it's related to salvation itself. In verse 1 of Hebrews chapter 4, it says this: Therefore, since a promise remains of entering his rest, let us fear lest any of you seem to have come